Imagine being plunged into a state where your own thoughts no longer connect, the threads of your memory, identity, even reality itself unraveling piece by piece. It sounds impossible, yet this is exactly what psychological manipulators deliberately induce to render victims confused, compliant, and utterly vulnerable. If you've been watching this series, you know how memory and narrative control reshape minds, but induced cognitive fragmentation takes it to terrifying new depths. The concept of cognitive fragmentation, deliberately breaking down the continuity of thought, has roots in early psychological warfare and coercive systems dating back to mid-20th century experiments. One of the earliest documented cases emerged during the Cold War, where intelligence agencies developed techniques to disorient and destabilize prisoners through sensory bombardment and contradictory messaging. This method aimed at eroding a victim's trust in their own mental processes, creating fractures within their cognitive frameworks. Simultaneously, cults and extremist groups refined these tactics, intentionally exposing recruits to constant confusion, overwhelming stimuli, and conflicting doctrines to fragment their coherent sense of self. This process shattered critical thinking and memory reliability, making members more dependent and easier to direct. But here's where it gets disturbing. Inducing cognitive fragmentation was not only a tool for isolated coercion, but evolved as a systemic method to weaponize human cognition itself. The mechanisms laid out in these early psychological warfare protocols laid the foundation for modern manipulation far beyond the battlefield or cult compound, seeping deeply into mass propaganda and social influence. Understanding this origin is key to recognizing the subtle, persistent assaults on cognitive coherence happening today. So how exactly does induced cognitive fragmentation work? At its core, it operates by bombarding the brain with conflicting information, erratic sensory inputs, and emotional turmoil designed to overload neural pathways. When the brain encounters excessive contradictory signals, messages that cannot be reconciled logically, it begins to fragment, splitting attention, memory, and identity into disjointed parts. Sleep deprivation and irregular routines compound this effect by disrupting the natural restorative processes of the brain, essential for integrating experiences into a coherent narrative. This weakening of mental resilience opens pathways to dissociation, a psychological state where parts of consciousness detach from reality and self-awareness. Dissociation further deepens fragmentation, disrupting memory continuity and emotional regulation. What's even more unsettling is the deliberate use of unpredictable rewards and punishments, known as intermittent reinforcement, to destabilize expectation and trust. This method keeps the mind off balance, unable to form stable cognitive patterns or rely on consistent reality cues. And the most dangerous part? The combined effect is a fractured mind that does not detect its own fragmentation, making victims unaware that their perception and reasoning are being manipulated. Cognitive fragmentation is like mental erosion from within, slow, invisible, but devastating. But here's where it gets disturbing. Induced cognitive fragmentation isn't just theory. It's been explicitly used in real-world psychological warfare and cult systems with terrifying consequences. Take the infamous MKUltra program, a Cold War CIA operation focused on mind control. Reports and survivor testimonies reveal how subjects were exposed to sensory deprivation, contradictory hypnotic commands, and traumatic stimuli aimed at breaking down their mental coherence. Many victims suffered identity fractures, memory lapses, and lifelong psychological scars. Authoritarian regimes have also weaponized fragmentation tactics. For example, disinformation campaigns flooded with conflicting news, constant state surveillance, and unpredictable social controls create a climate where citizens cannot trust their own perceptions or memories, leading to psychological disempowerment and submission. Then there are cult survivors like those from the People's Temple or Nexium, who describe systematic cognitive disintegration through relentless doctrinal contradictions, sleep deprivation, and social isolation, resulting in shattered personal identity and extreme obedience. This is where the story takes a dark turn, the intentional dismantling of coherent selfhood to exert total control. These cases show that fragmentation is not accidental mental collapse, but a precise tactic designed to enslave minds. The fallout from cognitive fragmentation runs deeper than mere confusion. Victims often experience profound loss of identity, a disconnection from personal history, and difficulty distinguishing reality from fabricated illusions. This breakdown causes extreme suggestibility. Without a stable sense of self, individuals become highly manipulable, easily coerced into accepting false narratives or commands. Social isolation is another common consequence. Fragmented cognition disrupts communication and trust, driving wedges between victims and their support systems. This isolation deepens dependency on the manipulator or ideology responsible. Long-term trauma manifests not only as memory gaps but with disorganized thinking that impairs everyday functioning. Many survivors report chronic anxiety, depression, and dissociative disorders tied directly to sustained cognitive fragmentation. But here's the crucial insight: these effects are strategic. Fragmentation is engineered to create psychological vulnerability, silencing resistance by eroding the very mental tools needed to question and rebel. This makes it one of the most chillingly effective forms of psychological control known to human behavior. Now, if you think cognitive fragmentation only occurs in isolated cases, think again. Modern information environments have scaled these tactics to populations. Social media algorithms bombard users with conflicting opinions, misinformation, and emotion-driven content designed to fracture coherent worldviews. This creates polarized, fragmented societies, unable to agree on basic facts, fueling division and mistrust. Propaganda campaigns mimic severe disorientation through endless contradictory narratives, eroding collective memory and shared reality. News cycles that pivot rapidly among crises, scandals, and conspiracies mimic the sensory and cognitive overload once used only in covert operations. The result is a mass environment of psychological disintegration where individuals struggle to integrate experiences, resist manipulation, or find stable social cohesion. It's a fragmented mindscape that benefits authoritarian influence, corporate agendas, and ideological extremists alike. And this is where understanding induced cognitive fragmentation becomes vital, because the very fabric of societal mental coherence is under silent assault, shaping not just minds, but the future of entire cultures. But how can you fight back? Recognizing and resisting induced cognitive fragmentation requires vigilance and proactive mental defense. First, watch for signs like sudden memory lapses, confusion about basic facts, or feelings of dissociation. These indicate fragmentation at work. Maintaining regular sleep, minimizing exposure to contradictory or overwhelming media, and grounding through mindfulness can reinforce cognitive coherence. Critical thinking habits are your strongest shield. Seek consistent evidence, avoid emotional overload, and question rapidly shifting narratives. Social support is vital too. Engage with trusted people who help anchor reality and personal identity. By strengthening mental integration and control, you can resist becoming a fragmented target of manipulation. Now that we've uncovered the chilling mechanics of cognitive fragmentation, next week we're diving even deeper into more advanced memory manipulation techniques that build on these tactics methods, designed to rewrite reality itself. If you want to protect your mind, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss this crucial next chapter. Stay vigilant, because control often hides in what you don't realize you've lost.